Let's look at how these color adjustments that we just talked about can manifest themselves in Lightroom. First off, looking at this image, just a reminder of how very different the screen color space or the printed color space is from reality. So here we have a gold ring, a color chart, and a really ancient iPhone. When the fuck I took this picture. So things to think about, right? The way that that gold is rendered is very different in a print, in a screen, from how we would sort of like see it in real life. It is not metallic in the same way. It is not shiny in the same way that it is as an actual material object. The phone, right, in real life glows, right? I can take it into a dark room and I can see it just as well in a well-lit room because it is itself a source of light. Not the case once we make it a print. So there are just inevitable differences between what we can see from our camera on our screen in our print. If you had a color chart in front of you, you would see that this color chart on your screen, and certainly in a printed out version, would be different from that original color chart. There are just limitations in the color space and what you can see. That said, let's go ahead and look at our HSL adjustment. So I'm here in the Develop tab over here, HSL and color. If you're using the very latest version of Lightroom, may be a little bit different, but I'm going to stick with this since it's the one that I know most of us have access to. HSL and color, right? You'll recognize that HSL, hue, saturation, luminance, value, brightness, lightness, whatever. And then color, right? These are the exact same controls. They're just organized differently. So if I go to HSL, it's set up by all the hue adjustments, all the saturation adjustments, and all the luminance adjustments. If I go, to color, it has the color, red, and then hue, saturation, and luminance. The next color, orange, hue, saturation, and luminance. So it will have those three values for one color at a time, whereas HSL has hues for all the colors, saturation for all the colors, luminance for all the colors. If I do make a big adjustment, let's say I come in here to hue and shift all the blues over to minus 100, if I go into color and I go into blues, right, you can see right there the hue is at minus 100. So an adjustment in one area will immediately show up in the other because they're just different ways of organizing things, not actually different controls. Hold on, Option, get reset. So I'm going to go into a different picture actually. So this is a lovely picture of a mailbox with a bow on top in Louisiana. And I'm going to go in here to red, and you can see if I slide my hue around, the limitations of Lightroom compared to Photoshop. So remember when we were talking about it in the theory video, we said, okay, we can rotate this entire color wheel and get our color all the way around 180 degrees to its complement. In Lightroom, I can't do that. In Lightroom, I can move it over one way or the other, sort of toward a tertiary or secondary color, but not all the way around. So that is certainly a limitation. Again, most of the time, if you have a really big adjustment you need to be doing, you're not going to be doing it in Lightroom. This is really for fine-tuning colors. So hue, right? Saturation, more black and white, more intense color. And then finally luminance, more white, more black. Frankly, adding some black looks a little bit better. So that is adjusting HSL in Lightroom. One last thing to note, if I make a hue adjustment, this is now not red but magenta. However, in saturation and luminance, these are still applying to the areas of the underlying unedited color. So if I go into saturation and try to desaturate magenta, even though that ribbon is now pretty damn magenta, it's not going to do it, right? If I go in and do it in red, then it will, because Lightroom is still looking at the underlying original hue, and that's how it's determining what to adjust. So again, not the best way to be able to do it, but Lightroom isn't really designed to do huge color shifts in the way that something like Photoshop is. If you have the newest version of Lightroom, things have changed a little bit, certainly worth playing around with it, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. There's a bunch of other good tutorials out there. So, okay, have fun and get out there and do some color adjusting things.